The whole thing is definitely evolving, which means to science we have exponential curve, and it means it's going somewhere. We have an increase in aerial phenomena. Some of that phenomena has now been recorded on film. Undeniable evidence something unusual is occurring.
We move across several fields here. We're dealing really not only in meteorology and physics, but in archaeology, anthropology, and primitive religion, all at the same time. That's why I'm so interested, and why I wish to keep going on this now until we prove it conclusively.
I believe that this is one of those symbols or expressions which will show us a way forward by the very fact that we have to stretch to the limits our thinking and our way in which we apply ourselves to the future.
Bronze Age round barrows, mysterious reminders of Britain's prehistoric past. For years, archaeologists have tried to uncover the forgotten purpose of the monuments left by our distant ancestors. The ancient stones and earthworks in Wessex create a vivid feeling that this is truly a land of mystery. Recently, a new enigma appeared in the landscape, as flattened, swirled circular markings in cereal crops of Wiltshire and Hampshire. They went virtually unnoticed at first. Then, as their numbers and complexity increased, people began to see them for what they were, a mystery. One of the first to recognize the crop circles as potentially a new scientific phenomenon was Dr. Terence Meaden.
The first circles I saw were simple circles. And indeed, for years afterwards, they were all simple circles or simple circular systems. It was natural for anyone with meteorological knowledge to interpret the circles in terms of some sort of vortex system. But there's a primary difficulty here. The natural vortices in the atmosphere, with which meteorologists are familiar, are the result of inflowing air that whirls inwards and goes upwards. But here we've got evidence of something which has come downwards. So it was obviously a novel phenomenon within meteorology. And indeed, this is the very thing which has made it difficult for some other meteorologists to understand. One has to see how it could happen that the wind flow is going the opposite way. Well, the answer is vortex breakdown. Vortices just become unstable under certain conditions, and they break down and they do go the opposite way. The crop circles are evidence of this, and this is what's so important for meteorology in the first instance.
In the early 1980s, the crop circles had a small number of dedicated followers. Busty Taylor, a keen local pilot, began photographing the patterns from the air.
In 1985, I found the quintuplet set. This is the 5. And I immediately recognized it as something that I knew what it was, but not quite. And I decided to look into it, and of course it was a Celtic symbol. Over the last 6 years, I've seen many different shapes. More and more people are recognizing the symbols, and they in turn are then researching books, information themselves. It's though we were on an educational trip, as though we're being taught to do something.
By 1990, it was becoming apparent that the formations were displaying an evolutionary trend. Year by year, new variations on the basic circles theme appeared. On May the 4th, 1990, a circle with an annular ring appeared at Baltic Farm, Bishop's Cannings in Wiltshire. The green, immature wheat stems seemed to have resisted the circle-making force. From the air, small satellite circles were seen peppering the ground between the tram lines made by the tractor. No entry or exit signs were visible. But this was only the beginning. More spectacular formations lay ahead. In June of the same year, a circle over 300 feet across appeared in Wiltshire. The floor pattern developed a spoked effect some days after the event. This is common in formations in relatively young crops. Numerous small circles, known as grape shot, accompanied the giant circle. Over the years, circles investigators have encountered several unusual events, including compasses which spin when placed in the center of the formations. Mysterious green lights and other objects have appeared on photographs. Colin Andrews, a full-time circles investigator, describes one particularly well-recorded event.
We have had on 5 or 6 occasions now a very unusual noise. It's been called sparrow noise. It sounds like many, many crickets all operating at the same time. I would prefer the term electrostatic crackling noise. It is, frankly, a noise of great energy.
That's a terrible noise, just as you stand in the centre.
You're getting a noise there, Richard?
Very, very bad indeed.
Yeah, I can hear it here. I can feel it here.
This is our old friend back.
It is. Yeah.
Is it a pulse?
It's like
I think it's about here.
an electronic sparrow, really, is the best description.
That's it, yeah.
Coming and going as you move.
Just here.
Very, very
Just
bad.
here.
Very bad.
In
there.
1989, a BBC television crew
Yes,
accidentally
yeah, I
recorded
can hear
this
it.
noise while filming in a
hear it
circle at
too.
Beckhampton in Wiltshire.
Quite extraordinary.
It is a noise which has been recorded several times, and indeed we have there a consistency, a correlation. It is 5.2 kilohertz in radio frequency, but it retains a body which, when slowed down in ratios of 50%, is extraordinarily unusual. And again, we have something which we can't account for. And that certainly, again, is highly suggestive of an electromagnetic, maybe geomagnetic, variance from the norm.
Does the answer to the circles lie outside conventional science? Richard Andrews, like many dowsers, is able to detect a matrix of lines apparently covering the Earth.
The lines that we're detecting, we believe, is the energy force on which everything lives. We believe that that is part of the very living thing, the actual energy. And we have found that when someone dies, they have an energy in them 1 minute, and a second or two later there is nothing there. Now the point is, energy doesn't just stop. It goes somewhere. And we believe that it probably goes back into that system to regenerate it. But in 1985 was when I realized that the dowsing that I had been doing on the effect of the lines on the human being that we'd been looking at, that are in the landscape, were suddenly crossing in the middle of a circle. And that's when I realized then that this may have something to do with the circles in the corn.
Pat Delgado is a retired electromechanical design engineer. He's been looking for a solution to the circle's mystery for over a decade.
If you think you've set some standards for it, and they all do this or they all do that, all the circles, sooner or later you're going to have egg on your face, because along will come a circle that doesn't comply with all that you've seen so far.
On the 23rd of May 1990, Pat was one of the first to visit a totally new type of crop formation. The familiar circles were accompanied by a long avenue and 4 rectangular boxes. When first found, the boxes were completely isolated, with no tracks leading to them. that this was only the beginning. It wasn't long before crop circles were to become a thing of the past. As the complexity of the patterns increased, many people became less convinced by the plasma vortex theory proposed by Dr. Meaden. Colin Andrews was one.
Looking at it in terms of physics, the circles which were at this time spiraled clockwise indeed did have their first ring spun woven anti-clockwise, and when the second ring appeared, that was then clockwise, which meant we had markings which were balanced. They were in equilibrium. And that did comply still with the law of angular momentum, which meant that still there was just an outside chance that natural vortices of a meteorological kind may still be involved. Then something else happened. We had circles with boxes. We had the first coined term pictograms appeared. Now, frankly, it was stretching the imagination some to imagine that not only had these never been recorded in history, and weather's been around for many millions of years, and it did not comply with the laws of angular momentum. But the major axis on which it was sat at Alton Barnes, the first multiple agroglyph, was lying absolutely parallel to a man-made feature, the tram line, which was not in line with the wind flow on the night it appeared. For me, this eliminated the meteorological possibilities in one hit.
Although the evidence for a meteorological explanation might have looked shaky to some, there was still less to support any other theory.
Zodiac spells placed in the centre. It's not a swirl, so one has to say to whoever made this formation, you'll have to try much better next time.
This morning's corn circles in Wiltshire, it was all a hoax.
As Richard Branson flew over the site in a UFO-shaped balloon, some felt the government, concerned over the attention the subject was getting, had used the army to hoax the Bratton Circle.
It's not worth our while. We're very concerned with public relations, and that sort of thing will be frowned upon. Even if an individual decided to do it, the army would not cover it up. They would announce the fact that an individual had done it, rather than risk the army's reputation being tainted by an individual.
Public opinion is influenced by the press, who, some feel, are reticent about looking at the subject in any depth. Jürgen Kronig is the UK political correspondent for Die Zeit magazine.
One reason for this reticence may be that it is now obvious that this phenomenon can't be explained by a simple meteorological theory. And this became clear during the year 1990. Till then, there was quite an interest in the media as far as quality papers and television companies were concerned. But I think they dropped out, or they retreated, because it was now clear that there wouldn't be an easy scientific explanation in terms of our established traditional worldview. So there were only two other possibilities: the hoax, which now then prominently figured from then on as a possible explanation, or something supernatural.
many people seeking an answer to the circles look beyond conventional science. Do specialists in ancient arts such as astrology hold the key to the riddle? Leonie Starr is one of the founder members of the Centre for Crop Circle Studies.
Astrology has a lot of what we called shorthand hieroglyphics that only astrologers will understand. And I'd be happy to show you some of those. And what I have discovered with the crop circles is a lot of those symbols were turning up in the fields. Now, I'm not saying that they are astrological, but I do find it fascinating to see these symbols turning up.
Convinced of their profound importance, George Wingfield resigned as an IBM physicist to investigate the circles full-time.
This is not a natural phenomenon, it is something living. What form it takes, we're not quite sure, but here is an intelligence of a very high order which we're dealing with, and I don't think there can be any doubt whatever about that anymore.
In the closing days of Operation Blackbird, hopes were raised when a new circle appeared. Speeding to the site, Colin Andrews was in no doubt this time that it was no hoax. The cameras had recorded the field which contained the circle through the night. This is the section of the tape on which the event takes place, but the picture quality is so poor and the circle so distant that image enhancement has revealed nothing significant. Ironically, the circle which formed was in the shape of a question mark, symbolizing in many people's minds the question mark which still hung over the subject itself.
This subject defies all modern attempts at modern technical levels to come to grips with this to provide an answer. It defies everything. There is no way through at the moment.
I believe that these crop markings are the energy discharge patterns at a point which is actually the interface between this dimension, this real physical world, and another dimension which we know very little about.
Perhaps the harmony between our ancestors and the natural world was a key to the similarity between the simple crop circles and the shapes of many prehistoric sites. For Terence Meaden, the circles may unlock some of the secrets of archaeology.
I noted at once that the sizes corresponded fairly well with the sizes of stone circles in Britain and round barrows in Britain. And by 1983, I started work on the archaeological link, which I saw then could well exist. At that time, it occurred to me that circles were probably occurring at a very low level of frequency, but that if they had always occurred because they were a natural event, they would have been seen thousands of years ago at the time that stone circles and round barrows were being made. Crop circles, with their spiral and circular symbolism, seem to have entered spiritual thought. And the proof of it seems to be largely in the shapes of the circles. The fact that crop circles, when they're not circular, they're egg-shaped or elliptical. And so, if such a shape is delineated by putting around the perimeter small stones or big stones, then the shape is preserved for all time. So that people in this century can study stone circles, they can study the shapes and extract the same information that was put into them 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago.
Close to the huge Bronze Age hill fort Yarnbury Castle appeared the first crop formation of 1991, a 100-foot dumbbell in a yellow sea of oilseed rape flowers. On On the Isle of Wight, a small circle formed between the tram lines, again in a rape field. On closer inspection, this provided more evidence that the circle-making force was far from simple.
Oilseed rape plants, when mature at about 2 meters height and at about 1 inch across, it's a brittle plant and it's impossible to bend it beyond about 45 degrees without it snaps off like celery. And when this phenomenon occurs in those plants with those very beautiful yellow, delicate flowers, the flowers remain in place, the plants are bent absolutely at right angles, and there's not a botanist, an expert in the great knowledge of plants anywhere in the world yet who can tell us what energies could possibly replicate that effect.
We come into the 1991 season. A bit slow, but a few of us predicted there would be changes. There would be fewer circles, but larger formations. I don't think we realised at the time how large they would go.
The first surprise was this pictogram, which included a ladder design. It was initially thought to be a hoax. Later, it was accepted by many experts as part of the genuine phenomenon because of the intricate way the rungs were constructed. At Furze Farm in Wiltshire, the plants in the larger circle in this dumbbell pattern were lain clockwise from the centre outwards before abruptly changing to anti-clockwise rotation. Alton Barnes in Wiltshire has seen some of the most spectacular formations. Do the people who live near the circles see anything unusual? Farmer Tim Carson.
The lights that people have seen up in the sky tend to be beams of light that are coming down towards the ground. And whether it's coincidence, I don't know, but following one of these light shows that are seen in the night sky, there always seems to be a formation the following morning, fairly near to where these lights have been seen to be coming down.
Orange balls of light have often been reported in connection with the circles. During a secret army surveillance operation, this video sequence was recorded of one such object. But Terence Meaden still hoped for pictures of a circle forming.
Operation Blue Hill was the start of, I hope, a series of well-instrumented operations to learn the maximum amount we can about the formation of circles. I wanted to have radar available so that even if we missed a circle, we might be able to see in the air the thing that forms the circles. Circles form by night and by day. The eyewitnesses, who are now rather numerous, have seen circles forming by day. The people responsible for organizing a circles watch should be alert day and night. But they should also bear in mind the most likely weather conditions which can lead to circle formation.
On the 27th of June, thick morning mist cleared below Operation Blue Hill to reveal two new formations only a few hundred yards from Dr. Meaden's cameras. Once again, it was a case of so near and yet so far. The cameras could see nothing through the mist, and the radar's field of view was masked by the nearby hill. The growing popularity of the circles led to inevitable damage by sightseers too eager to think of using the tram lines to gain access. Many farmers were now charging to visit the more spectacular sights. Others saw the circles as a nuisance, drawing crowds of unwanted visitors onto their land. There were even cases of landowners burning the formations rather than harvest the crop inside the circles. Enthusiasts from all disciplines have become involved in the study of the circles. In 1990, the Centre for Crop Circle Studies was set up to provide a forum for research into the subject. Its chairman is Michael Green.
As a professional archaeologist, I am in touch with the Archaeological Aerophotographic Unit in Cambridge and with its equivalent in the Royal Commission of Historic Monuments. And I'm categorically informed by the heads of those organisations that there have been no crop formations that they would recognise on the many photographs they've taken since the First World War over the very areas which are being covered at the moment by crop formations. There's simply nothing there of this nature.
But is there a meaning behind some of the more complex patterns? Michael Green.
I looked at these formations and they reminded me very dimly of ancient cave paintings in Spain, and particularly of ancient pebbles which had been painted about probably 10,000 BC or so, at the very end of the last ice age. These symbols were identical to the sort of things we were getting in the crop circle formations. But what they showed, instead of four boxes, they showed an arm. So you had, as it were, a squatting woman with her head and a big fat bottom sitting on the ground with her arms outspread. And I was thinking to myself and said to my colleagues, I wonder whether we are dealing with a picture of Gaia, of the earth goddess. And within a few days, a formation had turned up in central Essex, which showed an exact replica of that type of figure. Now, I can assure you it was not a hoax. We didn't do it ourselves to prove a point. But there it was, almost as something was sitting on your shoulder and listening into your conversation and anxious to try and work alongside, if you like.
It is something that millions of people now see as can't be answered by our present level of understanding of physics. So the thing is, and this is what a lot of people can't face, it's something else. It's something beyond material world.
There is actually a geodetic structure of energy lines and energy points over the whole globe. And it looks very much as if I can put it like this, what is forming these crop circles, the crop circle makers, are plugging in to the energy points, literally 3-pin plugs. What is quite clear is that there are certain inscriptions beginning to actually turn up, and I mean real inscriptions, not just the odd glyph attached to a crop formation. At Milk Hill, for instance, you have a line of ancient writing. There's no question of doubt about it. It has the symbols of God at either side, the circle with a dot in it at either end. There are 3 spaces altogether in the middle of it, indicating you've got 2 words there of several glyphs each. It's my personal conviction that the main message will be conveyed to people's consciousness. This will be done by this rise in energy, if you like, rise in consciousness of the way people feel about issues. But it's also going to be conveyed, I think, through the actual structures of the crop circles themselves. They are mandalas. They speak to the inner consciousness of people.
Many people were experimenting, creating their own crop circles for various reasons. National Geographic Television commissioned this one to see if believable copies could be made. These Olympic rings are regarded by some experts as the work of hoaxers, although no one has yet claimed responsibility. Perhaps they are waiting for the books to be published before coming forward. In a desperate bid for an answer, one American visitor spent 4 hours carving his message in the corn. By the late summer of 1991, the crop circle community was quietly confident that it could easily distinguish a hoax from the genuine article.
I said, well, what is it you want to say? He said, I'm finding this very difficult. And Graham Bruff, the reporter, said, now tell them what you've done. And they said, we have hoaxed all the circles over the last 13 years, as far west as Warminster, as far north as Wantage, and as far east as Eastbourne. I think at that moment, the bottom fell out of my world because I was so anxious for it not to be true, just for the sake of every thousands, tens of thousands of people who were involved in this in a spiritual way. And that went through my mind. I shall remember that moment for the rest of my life.
So if what these 2 gentlemen say is true, and there's no reason to suppose they're telling anything but the truth, this could be the very last corn circle.
As the circles world reeled in shock, Pat Delgado and Colin Andrews were summoned to examine the hoaxer's handiwork.
It is a pity, of course, that hoaxing draws the attention of the international media, whereas 10 years' worth of work doesn't get the sort of attention that we've now got here. The Chief Scientific Advisor to the British government, Dr. Fisk, already has confirmed in the House of Commons, we have a genuine phenomenon. And don't let's be put off by 1 hoax and 2 very fit gentlemen.
Another man unimpressed by the demonstration set up for the cameras was host farmer Peter Rennick.
You can see from the way that the pattern's been produced and the way the corn's lying that something mechanical has actually caused that. It's been caused by, obviously, people trampling around somehow. The ones I've seen before have not been like that. They've been much flatter, solid, flat as a pancake to the ground. So I think this may be some of the answer, but certainly not all of it.
What you have here is a marking which is consistent with the dumbbell type we've seen. There's no problem with that. It's been on television many times this year. The marking, the shape is consistent. The symmetry is absolutely out of this world. It's rough, it's broken, it's damaged. One of the very salient features the computer spits out very quickly is the jerking motion, which we know the way they constructed this you're going to get, and you would get if any human being constructed any circle.
Well, this isn't supposed to be a circle for your inspection. This is supposed to be just a quick thing for the television cameras to show the technique.
When will we have a demonstration of a finished product?
Well, we did one a few nights ago, which we showed Pat.
Have there any photographs of it?
Yeah.
There is no way that anybody we'll be able to see new pictograms at this time of the year because all the fields are bare. So they're home and dry. They've said what they wanted to. They also said they wanted to get money out of this. They thought it was high time they were paid for it. And so I leave it with your own decision.
Well, it seems a bit pejorative to call them opportunists when yesterday you were quite complimentary on their skills and art.
I don't know if it was their skills or not.
Graham, could you confirm also that these gentlemen did state that they were the first ones, they started this phenomenon? That is what they said.
In 1978 they started.
Absolutely.
I don't think they've got any claims to be
No. Can they account for the photographic evidence?
Perhaps you ought to wait to the conference.
Yes, well, I was just thinking we've got a television.
Yeah, we do it.
Let's do it all
This
tomorrow.
is important. Well, I think it's important because
Well, it's
you
important.
have...
If it's important, it can wait till tomorrow. So
Well,
let's do it
we've got a
tomorrow.
television screen here.
Yeah, but this is-
We're going to have loads tomorrow.
Well, we
No,
won't.
we
will
won't.
We
No.
won't.
No, we won't. We're not
not at all.
allowing it.
Why not?
It's in camera.
It's got to be that way. We're
We
not going
can't.
to give the newspaper yet another scoop. And,
Well, then
and
we'll
make
challenge
the
you to
whole-
go on television, okay?
Oh, we'll be on there Wednesday. We're going on to an international press conference on Wednesday.
Yeah, but we'll challenge you to a confrontation with these two on television.
We will do
they
that.
want to.
We,
Fine.
Of course
Okay, we'll
we
do
will
that
do
then.
that.
The second answer anything. Any questions you've got? 100%.
Great. We look forward to it. My God. And what is it all coming to? What is it coming to? You heard the guy there, you heard that guy there on camera say that these fellow painters started it in 1978.
Well,
The
I
next
shouldn't say,
question, I think it's Pat. I've got a camera
Okay,
rolling here,
yeah, all
right?
right.
I've got
Yeah,
a camera rolling,
yeah.
and the next question was, and he knew it was going to be, we have the evidence in Circular Evidence, the first book, of markings and photographic evidence of a phenomenon prior to that time.
Yeah.
Where were they?
I'm Dave Chorley, this is Doug Barr, and we are the two people that have created the crop circles in 1978 through to today.
We soon discovered that Pat Delgado and Colin Andrews were beginning to expect different things instead of circles and pod marks around, satellites as they called them. They had their own names for all these things. And we started doing the patterns, and last year we did the first pictogram at the bottom of Cheesefoot Head, and that caused quite a sensation. And since then, the furor's got more and more and more. People from overseas coming over because it's something that's, even away from the circles, it's more and more important, you see. And they're just scratching their heads. They're still scratching their heads 13 years later. They're no further forward now than they were in the first days. But the reason why we've decided to close it down is the fact that we're getting older, and the amount of energy used to create these circles for about 4 months during the summer months is quite a lot.
This is what's got to be said. We weren't, in the beginning, nobody thought it was going to come to this. In the beginning, we weren't fooling the world, we just wanted a bit of fun with the UFO boys. It was all fun. People were having fun. We had lovely art forms in fields, 100 people oohing and ahhing, enjoying it. But people always try to make money out of something, don't they? The people with brains think, here's a money earner. This is what happened.
In our first book, Circular Evidence, we described exactly what we were looking at, because it is that very thing we wanted people to imagine they were walking into a circle for the first time, and the way it was laid down. So they were describing how it was laid down and how they did it.
Then I'll come up with the odd ear one. I thought, hey, we'll do about the last 15. Beautiful art. Let's sign them. Doug and Dave. So we'd have, and these people have said when they saw them, lovely signature. They were even talking, and people were still swallowing that, and D&D is Doug and Dave.
Doug and Dave seem to have been claiming that they've done a lot of hoaxes and implying that the ones they didn't hoax, other people have hoaxed. In other words, if we're to believe what they're saying, the entire subject is a hoax. When it comes to this so-called grape shot, for instance, one has sometimes a system more or less complicated with a lot of subsidiary circles, all found at the same time, fresh, the same morning. Are they saying that they go along and make one spectacular thing, and that the same night somebody else comes along and adds in about a dozen little ones, and then in the morning we all come along and find the whole lot as a group? It seems very unlikely here.
Poor Terence Meaden has been struggling all these years to try to... He's been struggling all these years to try and bring his wind business into this, you see. And when the pattern started, he started scratching his head, you see, because everyone was asking how on earth can whirlwinds create patterns like this, you see. So he's now come up with the plasma vortex, which is something that no one's ever heard of before. He's originated this himself. And of course the Japanese scientists have turned around and said that it's something lightning or something, bolt lightning is it? Ball lightning, which has been created in a laboratory. But we're the instigators of the patterns. We're the ones that designed them, we're the ones that's done them, and we're the ones that have finished with them.
At Morgan's Hill this summer, you had an infrared beam, in fact, which was running effectively across the ends of all the tram lines on both ends of the field. Then that completely rules out anything else, then, except the arrival of some bird from the sky.
The government may have given them a grant, mightn't they, during the next course of till next summer?
As Dr. Terence Mead suggested in his last interview on television, that it's about time that we approach the British government for funds, and I think really it could be spent at a better thing, really.
We are looking at flattened corn. That's all. We used to go round sometimes, and old Doug used to chuckle. I said, "What do you reckon?" He said, "I can't believe this. It's flattened corn." That's what we used to talk about. It's flattened corn. As simple as that.
Doug and Dave have claimed to have constructed all three formations that appeared at a location called Longstock, south of Andover. One of those formations was the very first Celtic cross to have appeared anywhere in the world. Right here, with Pat Delgado, about 12 hours before the Today newspaper published this extraordinary, fraudulent, in my opinion, claim, I was sat here listening to all that was being said, and I had not heard myself one dime of evidence which convinced me they had even constructed a single formation. And I challenged them when I heard Doug claim to have constructed those formations at Longstock. I immediately was, of course, aware in the database we hold there some major clues, many of which have never yet been revealed publicly, and some of them, for very good reason, probably will never be so. And for these very reasons, what I did then was I grabbed a piece of paper here and drew out the Celtic cross and enlarged the part of the ring which connected the four satellites together. The plants were lying, in fact woven into a sine wave initially, running around the circumference of the connecting ring, becoming gently radial, and indeed at one point completely so, coming back into flow in sympathy with the ring. And I drew this out, I laid it in front of the two gentlemen and asked them, how did you construct that? And there was total silence. I guess some 4 or 5 seconds later, when this uncomfortable silence had to be broken, the younger of the two gentlemen, Dave, looked over the top of the drawing and said, "We didn't make that one." If you ask the wrong questions, you get the wrong answers. And until we are given a full opportunity to ask the right questions by the people like ourselves who know the answers, I'm afraid the public may well get the wrong impression. And one word will come up before their eyes: hoax. And I can tell you, they're wrong.
I went to this formation in Cambridgeshire, and I went with Beth Davis, who knew about it and had described this as being a large heart-shaped formation. In fact, a heart with complications. The realization gradually dawned on us as to what this was. It was undoubtedly a Mandelbrot set. And of course, I hadn't got textbooks and diagrams with me, so I couldn't check out the exact placement of the various components, the small circles and the position of the great cardioid, that I knew, because I had studied the Mandelbrot, that this was quite undoubtedly what it was. The science of fractals, which is largely developed and discovered by Dr. Mandelbrot himself, describes what happens when order breaks down. And order breaks down at a surface, and above the surface you may have chaos, at the surface you have order, and the boundary layer is what is interesting, where order is changing into chaos. And you can describe mathematically what is happening using fractals and using computers, and this is what you have in chaos theory. The Mandelbrot set is the best known of the fractals. This, I think, relates to what is happening in human consciousness now. There is a very, very rapid change in consciousness, a very rapid change in our perception of the world. And I think it's an interesting parallel that here we have, if you like, chaos in consciousness to a certain extent, or a breakdown of the established order. And here we have the Mandelbrot set sitting out in the fields near Cambridge, albeit briefly.
This huge formation is identical to a shape recognized as a universal mathematical constant, the result of a simple formula designed to quantify the theory of chaos. It might be safe to assume that the formation is a hoax, as some have already done. The implications of it not being man-made are far more disturbing. There are only a handful of eyewitnesses to circle formation. Most of the information about the circle-making force is concluded from examination of the formations themselves. An increasing number of people have reported unusual flying objects in association with crop circles. Jürgen Kronig thinks there might be a significance in this.
We know that probes, or small objects operating in a way normal human technology, as far as we know, doesn't allow, have been observed at test sites, at missile sites, at the first flight of the Concorde, for instance. So this has been shown on British television, but has been forgotten by the media, who doesn't like anomalies like these flying things, as science doesn't like it.
Subsequent analysis of this film from the early 70s concluded an object in the gate of the camera as the most likely explanation.
These two German students, sons of a farmer near Cologne in Germany, were here in Britain to look at the crop circles, were out each and every day and night and filming a formation near Marlborough at the 18th of August 1991 in the evening between 8:15 and 8:30, and one of them was filming with the camera, was standing on top of the roof of their VW bus, when he suddenly saw something flying into the crop formation. What it is, we don't know.
There's the thing! A light! Yes! Here again!
Last year at Alton Barnes, an Englishman, Stephen Alexander, recorded a similar object. But this sequence, shot by Constantine and Dominic von Durkheim, is remarkable for its clarity and for the number of times the object appears, 5 in all. At one point, it leaves the surface of the crop and flies into the air. This is more apparent after enhancement. Notice how it appears to get smaller as it travels towards the camera. As yet, no one has been able to explain this remarkable piece of footage. In 1990, over 600 appeared. Most occurred, as they had done in previous years, in the Wessex Triangle of central southern England. Yet perhaps partly because of increased publicity for the phenomenon, many more were reported further afield. In 1991, once again, Hampshire and Wiltshire were the most favoured areas, but few simple circles now appeared. Near Northampton, this huge circle with raised rings formed in July. These circles formed in Buckinghamshire near Little Missenden, a quintuplet with a spur from the central circle. Near Cambridge, where the Mandelbrot appeared, a variety of simpler patterns were seen. In South Cornwall, a circle at Callington was cut down by the farmer. The following night, a new circle formed 30 feet from where the harvester had stopped. By 1991, many formations appeared, some simple circles, others more complex patterns. One of the most unusual markings was the so-called dragon's footprints. A dumbbell near Wenlock Edge in Shropshire resembled many of the early shapes found in southern counties. At Elton near Peterborough, these beautifully formed rings appeared close to the site of circles in 1990.
Now, with a decade worth of research behind me, my heart tells me that the answer is not going to be found by looking in a too hard, focused a fashion at pure science. Something tells me to listen a little more to my heart, and something which feels quite right in the equation, in the scale of things, to me, is the information coming back from the Hopi Indians and the Kopi people. These are ancient peoples who have cut themselves away from the rest of society. When they see these symbols, they've not had the opportunity yet to see them at first hand. They have immediate reactions. They tell me, and I am happy to consider it, because it actually feels right. They recognize meaning. They are not looking here, they say, at a language. You're not looking in the symbolism at A, B, C, or D. You're not looking at colour. It isn't a matter of an alphabet, of a language in that form. These markings have meaning, and the meaning is recognised by the consciousness of man simply by looking at it.
Studies of the flattened crop itself seem to indicate the circle-making process to be complex but rapid. Some people believed it took only a few seconds for a circle to be created. Pat Delgado and Colin Andrews are seasoned circles investigators. By 1990, they were still baffled by many of the traces left by the circle-making force. They were gripped by a mystery they couldn't resolve.
You see, this is where these plants are lifting, only in the band around the perimeter on node 1.
Similar to the Corhampton one, isn't it?
Absolutely right. It's where node 1 will be, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
And those that are standing adjacent are coming up on node 3.
Yes. But
yeah,
do you
they're in the
notice
top of the plant.
that also underlying there's a flattening. They're actually lying flat on the ground, like this one here, and these along here, look.
Yeah.
They're flat on the ground while there's others growing up right
That's
again.
right. Only in the ring.
Yes.
Only in that
As
ring.
though there's been a much higher pressure around that.
Yeah.
What, 10 inches wide or so?
Yes.
Ring around the outside.
Which I think, as you made the point over there, it's really a replica, almost, even in width, of the outer annular ring.
The flattened crop in some circles displayed a symmetrical swirl pattern, which seemed to indicate some kind of rapid rotating force had created the markings. This was one of the features which Delgado and Andrews felt they could distinguish a genuine circle by.
Just look at the veining formation of this circle. This is impossible to hoax. You have here an expanding spiral from the centre to the perimeter, pushing out the flow of these plants towards the perimeter and striking into the, in a toothed effect, into the standing crop.
There were other notable effects associated with the circles. Those who practiced the ancient art of dowsing reported strange and powerful energies when they entered the mystery circles. It was claimed that the power from these so-called energies could be interpreted by the human mind with the help of crystals, pendulums, and dowsing rods. Delgado and Andrews became convinced that the energy which created crop circles was outside the realms of known science. By the summer of 1990, two major TV networks, the BBC and Nippon TV in Japan, decided to help Delgado and Andrews in their quest for the solution to the mystery. On the ramparts of Bratton Castle in Wiltshire, a bristling array of electronic hardware focused on a classic circles-prone area suggested by Delgado and Andrews. There was one goal: to capture a crop circle forming on videotape. 7 image intensifier cameras and 1 thermal imaging camera would watch for 3 weeks. The first formation appeared on July the 25th. Both cameras and ground investigation revealed it to be man-made. A second formation was formed on August the 4th. It was too far away for the cameras to detect what caused it. Subsequent surveillances in 1991 failed to reveal what caused the circles, even when a marking appeared directly below the cameras. In September of that year, this pictogram appeared in Kent. It was to have a profound influence on crop circle history. Following a tip-off from a national newspaper, it was soon investigated by Pat Delgado.
I classed it as I would lean towards saying it was genuine, and I feel that it's on the cards that it is genuine. But that doesn't mean to say that every other one is a hoax. I'm only talking about that one. I consider that all the others are genuine, that we've said are genuine.
Today newspaper claimed that 2 men in their 60s had constructed the formation. Jürgen Kronig, journalist and circles enthusiast, watched them at work.
They did create a simple circle in quite an amazing speed, with a highly effective but very simple method. And the circle doesn't look too bad. I mean, I've seen better circles, the corn flat, the stems flowing around stones, bigger stones lying in the field, which wouldn't be created by this method they used here. But nevertheless, you have to admit that they know what they do, and they are able to do something quite amazing, obviously. Pictograms, for instance.
Many circles enthusiasts refused to accept their story, but Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley had planted the seeds of doubt. July 1992 saw a bizarre competition, a circle-making competition. Just how good were the human circle makers, and how did they manage to make precise patterns in the dark? At nightfall, 12 teams entered a Buckinghamshire wheat field. The following morning, this was the result. The markings seem to be very similar to those described by enthusiasts as unhoaxable. The competition organisers asked experts from the Centre for Crop Circle Studies to judge the entries. But how did the judges know that the characteristics they were looking for weren't made by people in the first place?
There's one.
Double, haven't they, really?
Have you got a photograph
Double.
with you? Have you got it?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, but I want to see that much crisper and in stem.
To John Michel, then editor of the Cereologist magazine, it was all perfectly simple.
The crop circle subject as a whole is still a complete mystery. The cause and the meaning are still completely unknown. And it was never thought that this experiment would actually solve anything. It was just to give us an idea of what people could actually do, which hasn't really been done before.
The man who thought of the competition in the first place was Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, a biologist who still had an open mind as to the cause of the circles.
Yes, they've done much better than I expected. Firstly, the performance at night was much more silent and much less obvious. I'd expected more lights and torches and much more noise. And when this contest started, 50 people disappeared into this field. Within a quarter of an hour, they'd been swallowed up into the darkness, and you hardly knew that there were circles being made all around. So that was very impressive, and I think the standard of these formations is extremely high. The subtlety of the way things are laid, the subtlety of the way the stalks are bent and that kind of thing may well differ from ones observed, which may be genuine in the field. But the overall impression is very, very good. I mean, they've done a fantastically good job. So I think this shows that hoaxers can do certainly much more than I thought they could do. But on the other hand, it doesn't prove that all circles we find in the field are hoaxes. And we know, for example, that forgers can produce £20 notes that look very like the real thing, but that doesn't prove all £20 notes are forgeries.
Of course, the judges knew beforehand that they were dealing with a full set of forgeries. I asked one of their team, Richard Andrews, how easy he felt it would have been to tell these fakes apart from real crop circles.
We would have had to have been careful, very careful, I think. The thing that was missing from them all was that lovely flow that we get, which makes it look as if it's gone down like water. And that's the only thing, really, that was missing. If that had been there with the winner, I think it would have been hard put. Really. And if it had doused as well, it would have been even worse. So that's why I'm going over them afterwards, and I'm going to have them open, honest appraisal, because there's no point any other way.
Before the winners were announced, Jürgen Kronig expressed doubts about a totally human answer.
I personally think that even the best three teams didn't deliver everything which was required, and that there's still a question mark as far as the possibility of creating a completely genuine-looking circle or formation is concerned, because some characteristics were missing, nothing was bent, everything was broken, and generally I would say that the flow of some or many of the formations I've seen in the past, and I think we all agree about this, was not there.
The remarkable thing about the three winning teams was their inexperience in circle making. Doug and Dave had refused to enter, and the Cambridge team, who came third, had only a couple of years' practice. The rest had only begun that year, including Jim Schnabel, author of Round in Circles.
I think that is a unique feature of this competition. He was the only team with a single member himself. The team who made the best
formation, and I would say the most dexterous formation, Adrian Dexter.
Oh, I don't know. I still can't believe it. Still so tired that we didn't sleep last night.
So you were, what time did you finish the circle?
3 o'clock in the morning. It took the whole 5 hours.
And why do you think yours was better, or do you not?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. We didn't have any entry marks at all. We spanned every bit of crop. We didn't walk through anything, so which was a good point.
Did you have any secrets that you're prepared to disclose?
Oh, no secrets at all. I mean, nothing at all. I mean, we're prepared to show everything that we did.
Dexter's team used an elaborate method to avoid damage to standing crops. Their equipment was tailor-made to produce precisely the design the judges had set them. In the civilized world of the circle-making competition, there was no need to worry about being spotted by passing police cars or farmers with ferocious dogs. The fact that it was far easier than anyone thought to produce credible circle designs irritated those who believed in an unknown cause of the circles. For them, anything which conflicted with their preconceived ideas was looked upon with suspicion. Michael Glickman from the CCCS still refused to believe that humans could be making circles.
So who are these people? And why haven't we found them? No one else here claims to be a professional. So what's their motive?
I went around last summer and or some part this summer trying to find hoaxers and trying to catch them and so on. It's very difficult. It's so easy to go around in a field at night undetected. It's remarkably easy.
Yes, we learned that last
sound
night.
Is damped, and you can't see very far. You can be fairly close to people who are actually looking for hoaxers.
The believers cross-examined Schnabel, saying there was no proof for what he was saying.
We just couldn't wait for the nights to go out and take our equipment. We were sort of concocting all different sorts of equipment to do different things, and as I say, it became an obsession in the end.
When you're in the midnight and maybe the moon's up, and you're in England and maybe in a place that no one's ever walked before, and the corns around you, it's the most beautiful feeling that you'll never get across to anyone at all, unless they've been there with you through the years.
There were no circles at all before 1978. There was storm damage that looked like corn circles, and I've seen some even this season that made me pull up in my car because I thought that was a circle, but it's not a circle at all. The circles that we created in 1978 with the standing walls of corn as if they'd been cut out of pastry with a knife, they were our doing, and we started it way back in that time.
The power of their argument is reinforced by the catalogue of photographs in Doug's possession. These include pictures of circles never seen before. With the statistics of formations discovered from 1978 onwards, it's possible to build up an accurate picture of the real proportions and evolution of the phenomenon. The numbering system used counts each circle system as one, rather than component parts. Most of the circle's enthusiasts were keen to make the numbers seem as large as possible, yet the reality was that up until 1989, 2 people could easily have accounted for all the formations in one season.
You're looking in the natural phenomenon, usually, of markings where the plants are spiralling but expanding from the centre towards the perimeter, and often there's not a spiral at all. They will push straight out like a firework burst out, and that's impossible. It is impossible to replicate that. They all go down at the same time, and indeed on occasions you have as many as 6 layers which are woven, interwoven, interconnected, and once again that shows us and tells us a lot. It means that there's not a construction order at all, that it simply happens together.
To study the precise details of the construction process, we commissioned Doug and Dave to make another circle for our cameras, this time in broad daylight. they made a large central circle using the stomping technique. As usual, it wasn't precisely circular. Then a ring was traced out following the contour of the outer rim. Its distance from the edge of the circle was 4 feet. It was measured using one of their sticks. Four satellites were positioned using 2 crossed white sticks placed at 90 degrees in the circle centre. While Dave held the end of a piece of string over the centre of the crossed sticks, Doug walked round in an arc. When the string lined up with the stick, he stopped and made a satellite circle. We also asked for a demonstration of the famous baseball cap surveying technique. Once Doug lined up the sight on a building or a light, the rest was easy. For Doug and Dave, the circles continued. They, more than ever, wanted the world to know that they were the real circle makers, yet they weren't alone. Many people felt that circle making was still fun, while there were still people out there ready to believe there was a mystery.
I think really that the most valuable experience that we've learned from the whole 13 years of circle making has been the wonderful feeling that we've got in the world that we live in. And I don't know what it is, I can't explain it, Dave can't explain it either, but when we're both sitting in the field together and looking at the whole thing, that sort of feeling comes through us, that feeling of mystery. Why we did it, I can't explain.
If you discuss it rationally, it's crazy. But were we, and Doug has said it, and I used to laugh at him at first, but I'd even have to concur with him sometimes that were we being told almost to go out and do them. I know it sounds crazy.
Just look at the light on this corner now. Look at this.
Look at the feeling.
Look at the evening sky.
Look at that sky with the lower. Look at it.
You can't
it's
help feeling that there's something different about it all.
After 1990 and 1991, when crop circles were brought to the attention of the global public, the press seemed to lose interest and the reports were silenced. They were not mentioned again for years afterwards. But the phenomenon continued to exist and remained unexplained. Certainly, throughout history, the Englishman has become well known for his farcical and fabulous stories. Yet there is a phenomenon here. It is real. You can touch it. You can get into the eye of the circle. In the center of the circle, we find the characteristic swirl around which the crop has been flattened, sometimes clockwise, sometimes counterclockwise. The stalks are clearly not cut, as some may still believe. They are bent but not broken, and often lie bundled together in several layers and lines. Up to 3 days after the appearance of the formations, amateur and professional cameramen can experience the effects of residual electromagnetic fields which cause their batteries, which normally last 1.5 hours, to discharge within 10 minutes, as if the life were being sucked out of them. Our own camera crew can confirm this effect. Scientists from many different disciplines came from all over the world to southern England, trying to solve the puzzle by approaching it from all angles. Meanwhile, many specialist magazines are dealing with the subject. One of the best informed experts on the crop circle phenomenon is George Wingfield, editor of the longest running magazine on the subject, The Cereologist.
I first became involved in the crop circles in August of 1987, and I read a small item in the newspaper about some crop circles which had appeared near Westbury, Wiltshire, and I went with my wife and my 2 young sons to see what this was all about. And I remember this very well. At the time I thought this will be something very simple. I'm sure we'll see what the explanation is straight away. I was thinking entirely in scientific terms. But we found these crop circles. We found a number of crop circles that day, and it soon became apparent that this was not something easily explained or obvious. All sorts of thoughts did occur to one, that it could have been possibly caused by some atmospheric vortex or something of this kind, or possibly man-made. It just didn't seem that way. Later that day we went into a third circle. This was a very large formation with 2 concentric rings around it, and Gloria, my wife Gloria, sat with the dogs. We had 3 dogs at that time. Sat on a hillside looking down at us in the circle, and she saw blue flashing lights which appeared to flash across the ground just for about 2 or 3 minutes, and she said she just didn't know what this was. It was something very weird, but she had a very strong sensation that there was something there, something unseen, something invisible, which was causing whatever this effect was. And suddenly we didn't get the impression that these circles had been made by people or by any natural phenomenon. And that was just the beginning of it.
How did you survive the Doug and Dave revelation?
Well, undoubtedly, as far as the public's perception of this phenomenon was concerned, a very big dent. As far as the general public is concerned, those researchers who had the data base to look at, the data to peruse, clearly from the very beginning were not at all convinced that these gentlemen were responsible. When you only had to look at the results of their handiwork and listen to the questions and answers that they were giving to know that indeed there was never a real starting chance that they had ever perpetrated this particular phenomenon. It is unfortunate that the media worldwide were so well organized into position to release that throughout the world on just about every radio and television network throughout the world in less than 12 hours. Undoubtedly, that hoax claim was a hoax itself, and the phenomenon occurring around the world right now, something coming in the region of 5 or 6 per day of genuine formations, will of course confirm in itself that the phenomenon goes on.
Trees
standing in the background, and his eyepiece is...
Like Doug Bauer, some of the hoaxers went public, claiming that they could easily create these formations at night in almost no time, as Doug and Dave claimed to have done, using a simple rope, stake, or roller. To see if they could do this, world-renowned biologist Professor Rupert Sheldrake of Cambridge University worked with a German magazine to launch a competition under the authentic conditions in which crop circles appear at night with no artificial light.
Rubbish!
I wouldn't. Well, I mean, the evidence is that crop circles occur. I mean, they're real phenomena. But the question is what makes them. And the possibility that human beings make them was always obviously there, and it's not that difficult to flatten crops. The purpose of our competition was to find out if the various features of crop circles that people claimed could not be hoaxed could in fact be hoaxed, which is why we created a set design for the contest, which included supposedly hard-to-hoax features, and we wanted to see whether or not people could do them. The contest showed that, in fact, practically all these features could be hoaxed relatively easily. I was amazed at the incredibly high standard of the crop formations in the contest.
Looking closely, anyone can see that the edges are not as sharp as in the real formations. Stalks are broken instead of bent, and the swirl does not seem to be as perfect. The phenomenon seemed to reach a climax in the summer of 1996, when sometime around the 7th of July, this pictogram appeared in a wheat field close to Stonehenge. It consisted of 149 individual circles. This formation is not only one of the most beautiful designs ever drawn in the cornfields, there are also many clear indications that it was made during daytime.
The control tower told me that through their PR officer, public relations officer, that they monitored an aircraft into Thruxton that made mention of that design late in the afternoon of the 7th of July. Well, I, through Busty Taylor in England, have traced the pilot, another pilot, a civilian pilot with a doctor as his passenger, who flew over Stonehenge at 5:30 p.m. that afternoon, and they are positive that this design, this enormous, huge design, 912 feet down its spiraled spine, was not there at 5:30. Couldn't have missed it. Could not have missed it. 6:15, the light aircraft pilot has landed at Thruxton, and the doctor has got out, he's got into his vehicle, and is driving down the A303, and vehicles are already stopping. They're already looking at this enormous array of circles in the field.
On Sunday mornings, especially in the summer, my husband likes to go around the farm because living near Stonehenge, we do have certain problems with holiday makers camping in the fields, and at this time of the year, that isn't such a good idea. So on the Sunday morning of the 7th of July, my husband went all around the farm as usual, and nothing untoward came to light, so he came home again, and that was the end of the 7th of July as we know it. Later on, a pilot flew over the farm at about 5:30, and on his return from the southwest at about 6:10, he claims that these crop circles had formed.
According to the pilot's own statement, he overflew the field next to Stonehenge a second time on his return, 30 minutes after his first pass, and discovered the formation which had not been there on his outward flight. Unfortunately, he was unavailable for a personal interview in front of the camera, since the local press had reported some of his statements out of context and inconsistently. We were able to locate him and speak to him on the phone. Even so, we were met with a wall of silence. The guards at Stonehenge, who watched the fences and fields around the monument, had been specially instructed by their supervisors not to give any statements. Off the record, however, we heard that the guards who were on duty that day did not notice any activity in the field, which is easily seen from their position. Creating a man-made formation like this by daylight would require hours of concentrated labor.
And standing in the field, in the crop circles, you can see every vehicle on that road, and within 200 yards, I think it's less than that, about 150 yards from that road. So there was nothing going to move in that field during that day that wasn't seen by the road users. And then, behind them, we have the security guards securing the stones at Stonehenge. 24 hours a day, and even at night they had infrared equipment. They saw nothing.
Over the years, there has been an increased number of reports of unidentified luminous phenomena in connection with the appearance of crop formations. In some cases, these phenomena seem to materialize or are, in fact, substantial.
Because this will make a picture. You've got the helicopter and the circle behind them. He's bristling with equipment. Right, when we get this here, we can get a picture of him in front of that. Oh, yeah.
That the military really shows a lively interest in the corn circles was demonstrated all too clearly to Colin Andrews and his colleagues in the summer of 1994, when they discovered a military helicopter over Alton Barnes in a field where the most interesting large formations appear every year. It is the same field which was placed under close observation with infrared cameras in 1991, and the formation still appeared despite this. The interest of the crew of this hectically maneuvering helicopter was directed at an object similar to the disc already filmed by Steve Alexander at the same site in 1990. After the appearance of the helicopter, the disc-like object disappeared rapidly towards a neighboring field where the glittering of its surface in the background betrays its new position. The helicopter crew seems irritated, apparently having lost sight of the object.
Oh, what's that? What's that? There's something flashing on the ground.
Under it?
No, under the tail.
Oh, yeah.
You see it?
Under the tail? I do. That's their normal light, isn't it?
No, it's on the ground.
It's on the ground under the tail. Like...
There's some flashing thing on the ground.
Certainly a lot of very interesting photographic footage has been taken in the crop circle areas and near the crop circles over the years, and many things have been certainly seen which have not been recorded on film. But in Steve Alexander's film, taken in 1990, you see what appears to be a small disc, maybe just a few inches in diameter, which moves over the fields. It moves at fairly low level and goes down into the crop and comes out of the crop, and eventually flies off over a tractor which a man is driving, and this man looks up and sees this disc. That has never been explained.
And then I had a man come around and see me and show me this video, and it was just like the same thing I saw, but he asked me what I saw before he explained what was on the video, and I told him exactly the same what was on the video. So, you know, but I didn't. The strange bit about it is because when you're rolling, you come up the field and you just sort of carry on. You go out, turn around, and come back. And for some reason, like I come out the top of the field, and as soon as this thing appeared, the tractor stopped. And as soon as it left, I carried on moving.
There are very few cases of where anyone has positively said, I've seen a disc in the sky which has made a crop circle. There are certain cases where people have seen luminous objects and objects which look like discs above a field. Later they've discovered a crop circle.
At dawn on the 11th of August 1996, an amateur filmmaker who prefers to remain anonymous lay in wait at the Iron Age hill fort of Oliver's Castle near Devizes, hoping to catch the corn circle makers at work. He apparently succeeded in taking this footage. If genuine, it is really sensational.
To be in the right place at the right time. When we talked at the United Nations recently, back, 3 years ago, Mohammed Ramadan there, down at the SEAT group at the UN, asked if I would reinvestigate, if I would be prepared to reinvestigate, re-interview these 70-odd witnesses around the world who claim to have seen them form. I did get as far as I could into that list. I interviewed and re-interviewed a number of them. And the one thing they've only ever agreed on, they disagree on a number of things, of course, and that might be the truth of the matter, that it involves many, many aspects of which some people see, some people don't. On some occasions, that it physically is different than other occasions, but they all agreed on one fact, that what they witnessed, most credible people that I've spoken to personally, that these circles form very fast. They've all said between 10, 15 seconds has been an estimate. And this guy said very fast. He hadn't counted the seconds. Well, now we've got it on film. And it's 7 seconds from the very moment the spheres appear to the very moment it's all over. The actual major construction phase is about 3 seconds. I am convinced that the airborne component we know as UFO is a highly complex subject. It's an interdimensional object, and indeed it has a major part to play in these ground patterns. We've had 3 major events. The first involved multi-witnesses up here, something 18, 20 or more people, witnessing an orange light in the sky, which appeared to be approached by a helicopter or certainly an aircraft. That light then diminished in brilliance over a period of about 5 minutes, and in one quantum leap, it then appeared to the northwest of the site, moving directly overhead as a white light, which was then hit effectively by a beam of tungsten halogen light from our researchers down here, Dr. Stephen Greer, in fact, on the end of that light. And at the very moment that light shone on it, it simply disappeared.
What did it look like? All I could see was a pinpoint of light. That was all. It was just a dot of light. I couldn't see any shape or anything. I mean, there was a couple of red ones, mostly seemed to be white, and there was a blue one. No, there was a blue one.
And we see these 2 parallel lights come across the horizon, and they met together, and then they separated and descended into the field. And there they remained opposite each other in the field. And then some smaller lights came from those 2 lights into the centre and seemed to be turning around each other. Was still manoeuvring around, and there was a small amber light that was farther out to the right-hand side, became intensified and bright, as if it was like the sun lighting up, a golden star. And at the same time, on the left-hand side, a smaller red sphere came out and started encircling around the smaller white lights in the middle, as if it was bringing them together. And then they seemed to all just go out, with the 2 big ones remaining opposite each other. And this lasted for about 1 hour.
I looked at the lights and thought, they're just normal lights again. Then I realised one had moved, and then they flew in again. Then when I looked through binoculars, they were standing on top of each other, stacked. Then they separated and swung round to the west, over there, and went down on the field, separated and went down. When we looked, there was a light at each end of the field, a bright white light. So we watched this for a while and it started to glow. And then all of a sudden white light shot from all over, moving about all over the place. So we watched that for a few seconds, then realised it was a train, and the train passed. So when we looked again, the bright white lights were still in the field. So myself and Colin ran up the top and went to have a look. We found the point, looked down, and could see there was some sort of light action going on in the whole field. It seemed to take up the whole field. There was an orange glow to the left. Now, everything went fairly quiet and nothing happened. And we carried on watching. We watched this for a while. Now, where the orange glow was at the end of the right end of the field, we didn't think it was anything to do with what was going on until the whole field erupted in bright light. The orange glow turned into something nearly the brightness of the sun, and it stayed like that for a few seconds and then all died down.
You can't be absolutely sure about a crop circle. Nothing is absolute.